Captain Lee Dongmin stood on the bridge of the TFS Indomitable, watching the stars blur past through the main view screen. His hands gripped the command chair as explosions lit up the darkness around them. The hegemony fleet was closing in fast, and Earth's most powerful warship was running out of options. "Captain, we have 12 enemy cruisers on our tail," reported Commander Park Ji-won from her station. Her voice stayed calm, but Lee could see the worry in her eyes. They had been fighting for 3 hours straight, and their shields were down to 30%. "How long until we reach the jump point?" Lee asked. 2 minutes, sir," answered the navigation officer. Lee nodded and turned to the engineering station. "Kim, is the new drive ready?" Chief Engineer Kim Tae-ho looked up from his console, sweat dripping down his face. "Captain, I need to be honest with you. The quantum displacement drive has never been tested in combat. We don't know what will happen." "We know what will happen if we don't try it," Lee replied. "The hegemony will destroy us, and Earth will fall." The ship shook as another enemy blast hit their hull. Sparks flew from damaged control panels, and the lights flickered. Lieutenant Commander Choi So-young called out from the weapons station, "Sir, our main guns are down to 40% power. We can't keep fighting much longer." Lee looked around the bridge at his crew. These were the best officers in the Terran Federation, and they had followed him through 3 years of war. The Indomitable was Earth's last hope, the most advanced ship humanity had ever built. If they failed here, the war was over. Dr. Yoon Hairin spoke up from the science station. "Captain, the quantum readings are stable. If we're going to try this, now is the time." Lee took a deep breath. The quantum displacement drive was Kim's invention, a way to move through space faster than anything the hegemony had. But it was untested and dangerous. Still, staying here meant certain death. "All hands, prepare for quantum jump," Lee announced, over the ship's communication system. "This is going to be rough." The hegemony ships were getting closer. Their alien commanders had learned to respect human technology over the past 3 years, but they still thought one ship couldn't escape, their entire fleet. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Drive is charging," Kim reported. 30 seconds to activation." "Enemy ships are targeting our engines," Choi warned. "If they hit us now, they won't," Lee said firmly. "Trust the ship. Trust each other." The bridge crew worked with perfect coordination. Park managed the ship's course, keeping them away from the worst enemy fire. Choi used their remaining weapons to keep the aliens at a distance. Dr. Yoon monitored the quantum field, building around their ship. 10 seconds, Kim announced. Lee watched the main screen as the hegemony fleet closed in. Their ships were huge and powerful, built for conquest. The aliens inside them had destroyed dozens of human worlds. Today, that would end. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Activating now. Kim slammed his hand down on the activation control. The ship's engines made a sound nobody had ever heard before, like reality itself was tearing apart. The lights went out for a moment, then came back as emergency power kicked in. On the main screen, the stars began to stretch and bend. Space around the Indomitable started to twist into impossible shapes. The quantum field grew brighter and brighter, until everyone had to shield their eyes. "Something's wrong," Dr. Yoon shouted over the noise. "The quantum readings are off the scale. This isn't what the simulations predicted. Can we stop it?" Lee asked. "Too late," Kim replied. "The process has started. We have to ride it out." The ship shook violently as it was pulled into the quantum field. Through the view screen, they could see the hegemony fleet trying to follow them, but their ships couldn't enter the strange bubble of twisted space that surrounded the Indomitable. "Hull stress is increasing," Park reported, "but we're holding together." "Life support is stable," added Dr. Yoon. "Whatever this field is, it's protecting us from the worst effects." The shaking got worse. Crew members held onto their stations as the ship was thrown around like a toy. On the screen, the stars disappeared completely, replaced by swirling colors that hurt to look at. It was like flying through a rainbow made of lightning. "How long is this supposed to last?" Choi asked. "I don't know," Kim admitted. "The calculations said it would be instant, but this is something else entirely." Lee gripped his chair and tried to stay calm. His crew was looking to him for leadership, and he couldn't let them see his fear. The Indomitable was humanity's greatest achievement, and these people were the best Earth had to offer. They would get through this. The wild colors outside began to fade. The shaking slowed down. Slowly, stars started to appear again on the view screen. But something was wrong. These weren't the same stars they had seen before. "Report," Lee ordered. "Doctor." Yoon checked her instruments with growing confusion. "Captain, these star patterns don't match anything in our navigation database. We're not anywhere near Proxima Centauri." "Where are we?" Park asked. "I don't know," Dr. Yoon replied. "I'm picking up some strange energy signatures, but I can't identify them." Kim was running diagnostics on his drive system. The quantum displacement worked, but not the way it was supposed to. "We didn't just move through space, I think we moved through something else too." "What do you mean?" Lee asked. Before Kim could answer, the ship's sensors detected something that made everyone freeze. There were ships nearby, but they weren't hegemony vessels. They were human ships, but the designs were different. More advanced in some ways, but also showing signs of damage and poor maintenance. "Captain," the communications officer said, "I'm picking up a transmission. It's in Korean, but the dialect is strange." "Put it through," Lee ordered. A voice came through the speakers, speaking Korean with an accent none of them recognized. "Unknown. Vessel, this is Captain Oh Sung-woo of the Hegemony Patrol Ship Compliance. You are in restricted space. Identify yourself immediately." The bridge crew exchanged shocked looks. A human captain commanding a ship with a hegemony name? And he was speaking as if he had authority in this system? "Sir," Dr. Yoon whispered, "the quantum signatures from those ships, they're showing temporal displacement readings. I think we didn't just travel through space." Lee felt his blood turn cold. "Are you saying we traveled through time?" "That's the only explanation that fits the data," Dr. Yoon replied. "Captain, I think we're in the future." The transmission came again, more demanding this time. "Unknown vessel, respond immediately or we will consider you hostile." Lee looked at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders. Outside, human ships were threatening them in the name of the hegemony. Something had gone terribly wrong with their escape. "This is Captain Lee Dong-min of the Terran Federation ship Indomitable," he replied. "We are not hostile. Request permission to speak with your commanding officer." There was a long pause. When the voice came back, it sounded confused and frightened. "Did you say Indomitable? That's impossible. The Indomitable was destroyed 50 years ago. 50 years. The words hit Lee like a physical blow. If Dr. Yoon was right, they had jumped forward in time by half a century. But what had happened to Earth in those 50 years? Why were humans working for the hegemony? "Captain," Park said quietly, "look at the tactical display." Lee turned to see the fleet positioning around them. There were a dozen ships, all human-built, but carrying hegemony markings. They were surrounding the Indomitable like hunters circling prey. "Sir," Kim said from his station, "the quantum drive is completely drained. It will take days to recharge, maybe weeks. We can't jump again. And even if we could," Dr. Yoon added, "we have no idea how to control where or when we end up." Lee made his decision. "All stations, yellow alert, raise shields but don't power weapons unless I give the order." He opened the communication channel. Again. "Captain O, this is Captain Lee. We need to talk. There's been a misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding," came the reply, "is that you think you can impersonate heroes of the old war. Prepare to be boarded." Lee looked around his bridge one more time. Whatever had happened in the 50 years since they left, Earth was in trouble. Humans were serving the enemy, and the Indomitable was being treated like a threat instead of a savior. But they were still alive, and their ship was still intact. The most advanced warship Earth had ever built was now in a time where it might be needed more than ever. Lee didn't understand what had happened to his world, but he was going to find out. "Crew," he announced to the ship, "we're about to learn what happened to Earth while we were gone. Whatever we find, remember that we are still Terran Federation officers. We still represent the hope of humanity, and we will not surrender. Outside, the strange human ships moved closer. In the distance, more vessels were approaching. Some looked human, but others had the distinct alien curves of hegemony design. It was a fleet unlike anything they had seen before, a mix of human and alien technology working together. The Indomitable hung in space, alone and confused, carrying the hopes of a past that might no longer exist. Captain Lee Dongmin stood on his bridge, ready to face whatever this new time had to offer. The war they thought they were fighting was over, but a new battle was about to begin. Captain Lee Dongmin sat in the briefing room, staring at the holographic display that showed Earth. But this wasn't the Earth he remembered. The blue and green planet was still there, but strange structures orbited around it. Massive stations, with alien designs floated where human shipyards should have been. "This can't be real," Commander Park Ji-won said softly. She was looking at the same display, her face pale with shock. 3 days had passed since their arrival in this strange time. The human ships had surrounded them but hadn't attacked. Instead, they had been escorted to a space station near the edge of the system. The station was built with human technology, but it flew hegemony flags. Captain Oh Seung-woo had come aboard the Indomitable with a small team. He was a middle-aged Korean man with tired eyes and a uniform that mixed human and alien designs. When he saw Captain Lee, he had stared as if seeing a ghost. "You really are from the old war," Oh had said. "I can tell by your uniforms, your ship design, everything. But how is this possible?" Dr. Yoon Hai-rin had explained about the quantum displacement drive and the temporal accident. Oh had listened in silence, his expression growing more troubled with each word. Now they were getting their first real look at what had happened to humanity in the 50 years since they disappeared. "Tell me about the surrender," Lee said to Oh. Oh looked uncomfortable. "It happened in 2388, 1 year after your ship vanished. The hegemony launched a massive attack on the Sol system. Without the Indomitable, Earth's defenses couldn't hold." "One ship made that much difference?" Chief Engineer Kim Tae-ho asked. "You don't understand," Oh replied. "The Indomitable wasn't just a ship, it was a symbol. When it disappeared during the Battle of Proxima, people thought humanity's greatest weapon was gone." Morale collapsed. Lieutenant Commander Choi So-young leaned forward. "So you just gave up?" Oh's face hardened. "We didn't give up. We lost. There's a difference. The hegemony killed billions of people in the final assault. The survivors had a choice: serve or die." The room fell silent. Lee tried to imagine Earth under alien control, humans serving their former enemies. It made him feel sick. "What about the resistance?" Park asked. "There must have been people who kept fighting." For the first time, Oh smiled slightly. "There are still rebels, small groups hiding in the outer colonies, launching raids when they can, but they don't have ships like this." He gestured around the Indomitable's advanced briefing room. Dr. Yoon spoke up. "Captain Oh, we've been scanning this area with our sensors. The quantum fields around our ship seem to be interfering with your detection systems." "What do you mean?" Oh asked. "I think our ship is partially invisible to most scanners from this time period," Dr. Yoon explained. "The temporal displacement has changed our quantum signature." Kim's eyes lit up with understanding. "That's why the hegemony ships couldn't detect us properly when we first arrived. They knew something was there, but their sensors couldn't get a clear reading." Lee felt the first spark of hope since their arrival. "What kind of advantage would that give us?" "A big one," Choi said, checking her tactical displays. "If we can move around without being detected, we could strike targets and disappear before they could respond." Oh looked alarmed. "Captain Lee, you can't be thinking of attacking the hegemony. They control everything now. One ship, even one as advanced as yours, can't fight an entire empire." "Maybe not," Lee replied, "but we can make them notice us." Over the next few hours, Oh told them more about the new reality. Earth was now called a protected world under hegemony administration. Humans were allowed to live and work, but under strict alien supervision. Many humans had joined the hegemony military, serving alongside their former enemies. "It's not so bad," Oh insisted. "We have peace, no more war, no more death, The hegemony provides for us. What about freedom? Park asked. O was quiet for a long moment. Freedom is a luxury we can't afford anymore. The hegemony is too strong. That evening, Lee called a meeting with his senior officers. They gathered in his ready room away from their guests from the station. I want honest opinions, Lee began. What do we do now? Kim spoke first. The quantum drive is slowly recharging, but it will take at least 2 weeks. Even then, I don't know if I can control where we go. We might end up anywhere in time or space. And if we do manage to go back to our own time, Dr. Yoon added, we might create a paradox. Our knowledge of the future could change everything. Choi looked frustrated. So we're stuck here? In a timeline where humanity lost the war we were fighting? Maybe that's not so bad, Park said thoughtfully. If we're stuck here, maybe we can change things. This timeline's humanity gave up because they thought we were dead. What if we show them we're not? Lee nodded slowly. You mean become a symbol again? Prove that Earth technology can still fight the hegemony. Exactly, Park replied. Our ship is 50 years more advanced than anything they have here. We could hurt them. But Captain O has a point, Dr. Yoon said. We're just one ship. The hegemony has thousands. David beat Goliath with just a stone, Kim said with a grin. We have a little more than that. Lee made his decision. We're going to contact the resistance. If there are still humans fighting for freedom, they deserve to know they're not alone. The next morning, O returned to the Indomitable looking worried. Captain Lee, I need to warn you. Admiral Kang Min-seok is coming to investigate your ship. He's the hegemony's top human commander, and he's very suspicious about your arrival. Let him come, Lee replied. We have nothing to hide. You don't understand, O said urgently. Kang isn't like me. He's a true believer. He thinks the hegemony's victory was the best thing that ever happened to humanity. If he decides you're a threat, he'll have you destroyed. That afternoon, a large ship approached the station. It was clearly human-built, but it had been modified with alien technology. When Admiral Kang Min-seok came aboard, Lee was surprised to see a man about his own age wearing a uniform that was more alien than human. Kang studied Lee with cold eyes. So you claim to be from the past? How convenient that the legendary Indomitable appears just when the resistance is becoming troublesome again. Admiral, Lee replied carefully, we're not here to cause trouble. We're just trying to understand what happened to our world. Kang smiled, but it wasn't friendly. Your world doesn't exist anymore, Captain. This is a new age, with new rules. Humanity's place is as part of the hegemony empire, not fighting against it. Even if that's true, Park said, surely you can understand our confusion. We've lost 50 years. Have you? Kang asked. Or are you resistance agents using some new technology to impersonate dead heroes? The tension in the room was thick. Lee could see his officers preparing for trouble, while Kang's guards were doing the same. There's one way to prove who you are, Kang said finally. The real Captain Lee Dongmin had a daughter named Eun-mi. She would be in her 60s now if she's still alive. Lee felt his heart skip a beat. Eun-mi? Is she alive? That depends, Kang replied. If you're really her father, you'll want to see her, but I should warn you. She's not the little girl you remember. She's one of the most wanted resistance leaders in the galaxy. The room spun around Lee. His daughter, alive after 50 years, but now an old woman fighting against impossible odds. The little girl who used to sit on his lap while he read her stories was now a rebel, hiding from the government he once served. I want to see her, Lee said quietly. Kang nodded. I thought you might. But first you need to understand something. In this timeline, you abandoned your family. You disappeared and left them to face the hegemony alone. Your daughter has spent her entire life believing her father was a coward who ran away when things got hard. The words hit Lee like physical blows. In trying to save humanity, he had destroyed his own family. Take me to her, Lee said. I will, Kang replied. But remember, Captain, this is a new world with new rules. The old heroes are dead. It's time to decide if you want to join the living As Kang left the ship, Lee stood alone on his bridge, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, his daughter was fighting a war he had started but couldn't finish. The Indomitable had become a legend, but legends, he was learning, could be both inspiration and curse. Tomorrow, he would face the hardest thing any parent could imagine, meeting the child he had failed to protect, who had grown up without him in a world he couldn't save. The underground base was hidden deep inside an asteroid in the Vega system. Captain Lee Dong-min followed Colonel Bae Jun-ho through narrow tunnels carved from rock, past makeshift workshops where rebels repaired old weapons and patched damaged equipment. "She doesn't know you're coming," Bae said quietly as they walked. "Admiral Kang arranged this meeting, but he didn't tell her who you really are. He wants to see her reaction when she finds out." Lee's hands shook slightly. 3 days had passed since Kang's visit to the Indomitable. During that time, Lee had learned more about what his daughter had become. Yunmi was now 63 years old, a legendary resistance fighter who had spent 40 years organizing attacks against hegemony installations. "How many people follow her?" Lee asked. "Thousands," Bae replied. "She's not just a fighter. She's a symbol. People believe in her because she never gave up even when everyone else did." They reached a heavy door at the end of the tunnel. Bae pressed his hand against a scanner, and the door slid open to reveal a command center buzzing with activity. Rebels worked at computer terminals, planning operations and monitoring hegemony communications. At the center of it all stood a woman with gray hair and determined eyes. She was thin from years of hard living, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had survived everything the galaxy could throw at her. When she turned to look at them, Lee's breath caught in his throat. It was Yunmi, his little girl, now older than he was. "Colonel Bae," she said. "Admiral Kang said you were bringing someone important. Who is this?" Bae looked at Lee, then back at Eunmi. "Commander, this is Captain Lee Dong-min of the TFS Indomitable." The command center went completely silent. Every person in the room turned to stare at Lee. Eunmi's face went white, then red with anger. "That's not funny, Colonel," she said in a dangerous voice. "My father is dead. He died 50 years ago when he abandoned his family and ran away from the war." "Eunmi," Lee said softly, using the pet name he had called her when she was small. "It's really me." She stared at him for a long moment, studying his face. Lee could see her trying to match his features with memories that were 5 decades old. "You look like him," she admitted, "but you're too young. My father would be in his 90s if he were still alive." Dr. Yoon Hyren, who had come with Lee, stepped forward. "Commander, we can explain. Your father didn't abandon anyone. He was displaced in time by an accident with our quantum drive." "Time travel," Yunmi said flatly. "You expect me to believe in time travel?" "It's the truth," Lee said. "The day we disappeared, we were fighting the hegemony near Proxima Centauri. Chief Engineer Kim's experimental drive malfunctioned and threw us 50 years into the future." Yunmi was quiet for a long time, looking back and forth between Lee and Dr. Yoon. Finally, she spoke to one of her technical officers. "Shin Da-eun, can you run a genetic scan on this man?" A young woman at a nearby computer terminal nodded and activated a scanner. After a few minutes, she looked up with wide eyes. "Commander, the scan confirms it. This man is genetically your father." The command center erupted in whispers and excited conversations. For these rebels, the return of the legendary Captain Lee was like a miracle. But Eunmi just stood there, staring at Lee with an expression he couldn't read. "Even if you are my father," she said finally, "that doesn't change anything. You've been gone for 50 years. I don't know you and you don't know me." "I know you're my daughter," Lee replied. "I know you're brave and strong just like your mother. I know you spent your life fighting for what's right." "My mother died in the siege of Earth," Eunmi said coldly. "She died believing you were a coward who ran away when things got hard. I grew up thinking the same thing." The words cut deep, but Lee forced himself to stay calm. "I never ran away. We were trying to save Earth. The drive accident was something we couldn't control." "Maybe," Eunmi said, But you're here now, and that's what matters. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Over the next few hours, Lee and his officers learned about the Resistance's operations. They had bases on dozens of worlds, all hidden from hegemony sensors. Their fighters used hit-and-run tactics, striking supply convoys and communication posts before disappearing back into space. We hurt them when we can, Bay explained. But we're always running, always hiding. We don't have the ships or weapons to face them directly. What if you did? Commander Park Ji-won asked. What do you mean? Yunmi responded. The Indomitable is still the most advanced warship in human space, Wayne, Park explained. Our weapons and shields are 50 years ahead of anything the hegemony has seen. We could take on their entire patrol fleet and win. One ship against an empire? Bay asked skeptically. It's not about winning a straight fight, Chief Engineer Kim said. It's about proving that humanity can still hit back. Every time we strike and disappear, more people will start to believe that resistance is possible. Engineer Shin Da-eun, who had been quiet during most of the discussion, suddenly spoke up. Commander, what if they're right? What if one advanced ship could make a difference? How? Yunmi asked. Fear, Dr. Yoon said simply. The hegemony controls humanity through fear. They've convinced people that resistance is hopeless. But if a ship starts appearing out of nowhere, destroying their installations and disappearing again, that fear works both ways. Lee could see the idea taking hold in the room. These rebels had spent decades hiding and running. The thought of actually being able to fight back was intoxicating. What kind of targets would you hit? Yunmi asked. Military installations first, Lee replied. Supply depots, communication arrays, patrol bases. Nothing with civilian populations. That's a mistake, said one of Yunmi's lieutenants, a hard-faced man named Ko Jae-sung. The hegemony uses human civilians as shields. If we're not willing to accept collateral damage, we'll never win. We're not terrorists, Lee said firmly. We're soldiers. We protect civilians, we don't sacrifice them. Easy words from someone who's been gone for 50 years, Ko shot back. You haven't seen what they've done to our people. The argument might have escalated, but Yunmi held up her hand for silence. Enough. This is my decision to make. She looked at Lee. If you really are my father, then you'll understand what I'm about to say. I've spent my entire life fighting this war. I've seen friends die, worlds burn, and families destroyed. I won't work with anyone who isn't willing to do whatever it takes to win. Including killing innocent people? Lee asked. Including making hard choices, Yunmi replied. This isn't the clean war you remember, this is survival. Lee felt the distance between them like a physical pain. This wasn't the daughter he remembered. 50 years of war and loss had changed her into someone he barely recognized. I understand, he said quietly. But I can't change who I am. If we work together, we do it my way. Your way lost the war, Yunmi said bluntly. Maybe, Lee admitted. But it's the only way I know how to fight. The meeting ended without a clear resolution. As Lee and his officers prepared to leave, Shin Da-eun approached him quietly. Captain Lee, she whispered, there's something you should know. Not everyone in the Resistance agrees with Commander Yunmi about targeting civilians. A lot of us still believe in the old ideals. What are you saying? Lee asked. I'm saying that if you decide to start hitting hegemony targets, you won't be alone. There are people who would follow you instead of her. Lee looked back at his daughter, who was already planning the next resistance operation with her officers. She had become a leader, but also something harder and colder than he had ever been. I don't want to split the resistance, Lee said. You might not have a choice, Shin replied. The question is, do you want to fight a clean war and lose, or a dirty war and win? As they made their way back to the Indomitable, Lee thought about everything he had learned. His daughter was alive but had become a stranger. The resistance existed but was divided about methods. The hegemony was powerful but not unbeatable. Captain, Park said as they boarded their shuttle. What are we going to do? Lee looked out the window at the asteroid base, where his daughter was planning operations that might save humanity or destroy what was left of its soul. We're going to show them what the Indomitable can do, he said finally. But we're going to do it our way. The war was about to begin again, but this time, Lee wasn't fighting just for humanity's freedom. He was fighting for its heart. Overlord Veltar stood in the command center of his flagship, watching the holographic display with growing anger. 3 more hegemony installations had been destroyed in the past week, and his forces still had no idea what was attacking them. "Report," he commanded in his harsh alien voice. Commander Lim Sujin, a human officer who served as his intelligence chief, stepped forward nervously. "My lord, the pattern continues. The attacks come without warning, cause massive damage, and the attackers disappear before our response fleets arrive." "What do your sensors show?" Veltar demanded. "That's the problem, sir. Our sensors detect quantum disturbances right before each attack, but we can't get a clear reading on the attacking vessel. It's as if it exists partially outside normal space." Veltar's 4 eyes glowed red with frustration. He had been the hegemony's most successful commander during the human war, personally overseeing the conquest of 12 worlds. Now, 50 years later, something was making him look like a fool. Could this be a new human technology? He asked. "Impossible," Lim replied quickly. "Humans don't have the scientific knowledge for this kind of quantum manipulation. We've made sure of that." Meanwhile, deep in space, the TFS Indomitable prepared for its 4th strike mission. Captain Lee Dong-min stood on the bridge, reviewing the target data that Shin Da-un had provided through secret resistance channels. "It's a supply depot in the Kepler system," Commander Park Ji-won reported. "No civilian population, but it services 6 hegemony patrol squadrons." "Defenses?" asked Lieutenant Commander Choi So-young. "2 destroyer-class ships and an orbital defense platform," Park replied. "Nothing we can't handle." Lee nodded. Each of their previous attacks had been carefully planned to minimize risk while causing maximum damage. The hegemony was starting to panic, and that was exactly what they wanted. "Dr. Yoon, what's the status of our quantum signature?" Lee asked. "Still stable," Dr. Yoon Haerin replied from her science station. "Their sensors can detect that something is there, but they can't get a weapons lock. We're essentially invisible until we choose to reveal ourselves." Chief Engineer Kim Tae-ho looked up from his console. "Captain, I need to warn you about something. Each time we use the quantum displacement system for these hit-and-run attacks, it puts strain on the drive. I can't guarantee how many more jumps we can make." "How many more?" Lee asked. "Maybe 5 or 6 major displacements," Kim replied. "After that, we risk a complete system failure." The bridge crew exchanged worried looks. Without the quantum drive, the Indomitable would be just another ship, powerful but not invisible. "Then we need to make each attack count," Lee decided. "Signal the helm, take us to Kepler." The Indomitable dropped out of quantum displacement space near the hegemony supply depot. For a moment, they hung invisible in space, watching the enemy. Ships patrol their assigned routes. 2 destroyers as expected, Choi reported, and the defense platform is armed with heavy plasma cannons. "Begin the attack," Lee ordered. The Indomitable suddenly appeared on every hegemony sensor in the system. Before the enemy could react, Choi's weapons tore through the first destroyer's shields and hull. The alien ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The second destroyer tried to turn and fight, but the Indomitable's advanced targeting systems were too fast. More weapons fire cut through its engines, leaving it helpless and drifting. "Defense platform is targeting us," Park warned. "Evasive maneuvers," Lee commanded. The Indomitable moved like a dancer, avoiding the platform's heavy weapons while its own guns systematically destroyed the station's defensive systems. Within minutes, the entire depot was defenseless. "Scan for survivors," Lee ordered. "The depot has minimal crew," Dr. Yoon reported. "Mostly automated systems. The destroyer crews are abandoning ship." "Let them go," Lee said. "Destroy the supplies and military equipment, but leave the escape pods alone." "Sir," Choi said hesitantly, "if we let them live, they'll report what they saw." "Good," Lee replied. "I want them to report it. Fear is our best weapon right now." The UR Indomitable's weapons reduced the supply depot to scrap metal and floating debris. As hegemony reinforcements arrived at the edge of the system, the human ship vanished back into quantum displacement space. The news of the attack spread quickly, through hegemony space. For the first time in 50 years, an enemy had struck at their installations and escaped without losses. Rumors began to spread among human populations about a ghost ship that could appear anywhere and destroy anything. On Earth, in the hegemony's administrative center, Admiral Kang Min-seok studied the attack reports with growing concern. He had been tracking the pattern of strikes, and they worried him more than he was willing to admit. "Sir," his aide said, "Overlord Veltar is demanding answers. He wants to know if this could be connected to the appearance of the ship claiming to be the Indomitable." Kang was quiet for a long moment. He had been thinking the same thing, but he didn't want to believe it. If Lee Dongmin really had returned from the past, it could change everything. "Double the guard around all our facilities," Kang ordered, "and send a message to Captain O. I want him to find out exactly what that ship is capable of." Back on the Indomitable, Lee was dealing with a different kind of problem. His crew was starting to enjoy their role as the galaxy's most feared attackers, but they were also getting frustrated with his rules about civilian casualties. "Captain," Choi said during their mission debrief, "we could have destroyed those escape pods. Why let enemy personnel live to fight us again?" "Because we're not murderers," Lee replied. "We're soldiers." "With respect, sir," said one of the tactical officers, "this isn't the clean war we trained for. The hegemony doesn't play by those rules." "Then that's what makes us different from them," Lee said firmly. But privately, Lee was starting to wonder if his crew was right. Each attack was successful, but the hegemony's response was getting stronger. They were adapting to the threat, bringing in more ships and better sensors. The real test came during their 5th mission, an attack on a communication array that coordinated hegemony fleet movements. The target was defended by 4 heavy cruisers and a command ship. "This is our biggest challenge yet," Park warned as they approached the target system. "We can handle it," Lee said confidently. But when they dropped out of quantum displacement, they found a trap waiting for them. Instead of 4 cruisers, there were 8 ships, including 2 of the hegemony's most powerful battleships. "They were expecting us," Dr. Yoon said in shock. "Someone leaked our plans," Choi added grimly. The hegemony ships opened fire immediately, their weapons coordinated to cover every possible escape route. The Indomitable's shields flared as energy blasts hammered against them. "Shields down to 60%, Park reported. "Return fire," Lee ordered. The Indomitable's advanced weapons destroyed 1 cruiser and damaged 2 others, but there were too many enemies. More ships were arriving at the edge of the system. "We need to retreat," Kim called from engineering. "Quantum displacement is charging," Dr. Yoon reported. 30 seconds. "We won't last 30 seconds, Choi warned as more enemy fire struck their shields. Lee made a split-second decision. "Target the command ship, full power." "Sir, that will drop our shields completely," Park protested. "Do it," Lee ordered. The Indomitable's weapons focused on the hegemony command ship, tearing through its defenses and destroying its bridge. But the effort left them vulnerable to return fire from the remaining enemy vessels. "Shields are down," Park reported. "Hull damage on decks 7 and 8. Quantum displacement ready," Dr. Yoon announced. "Jump now," Lee commanded. The Indomitable vanished just as a massive weapons barrage reached their position. They escaped, but barely. In the aftermath, as damage control teams worked to repair their ship, Lee faced the harsh reality that their invisible war was about to become much more dangerous. "They're learning," Park said quietly. "Each attack teaches them more about how we operate." "And we're running out of quantum jumps," Kim added. "Maybe 3 more at most." Lee looked around his bridge at the crew that had followed him through time and war. They were still the best officers humanity had ever produced, but they were also tired and scared. "Captain," Choi said, "maybe it's time to consider other options. Commander Unmi's people are willing to hit softer targets, places, where we could do more damage with less risk." "You mean civilian targets," Lee said. "I mean effective targets," Choi replied. "Sir, we're fighting an empire. Sometimes innocent people get hurt in war." Lee was quiet for a long moment, thinking about his daughter's words and his crew's frustration. The clean war he wanted to fight might not be the war they needed to win. But when he spoke, his voice was firm. We stick to military targets, that's who we are. The crew accepted his decision, but Lee could see the doubt in their eyes. Outside, the hegemony was mobilizing its full strength to hunt them down. And somewhere in the darkness of space, his own daughter was planning operations that might save humanity's body while destroying its soul. The terror had awakened something in the galaxy, but Lee wasn't sure if it was hope or something much darker. Fleet Admiral An Kyung-hoon arrived at Earth with the largest hegemony fleet ever assembled. His command ship, the massive dreadnought Overlord's Fist, led a formation of 60 warships toward the blue world that had once been humanity's home. Admiral, his communications officer, reported, "We're receiving a transmission from the surface. Admiral Kang requests permission to board." "Granted," An replied. He had been summoned from the hegemony's core worlds specifically to deal with the Phantom, ship that was terrorizing their space. As the highest-ranking human in the hegemony military, he was expected to understand how human minds worked. When Kang arrived on the bridge, An could see the stress on his face. "Admiral, the situation is worse than our reports indicated. The attacks have inspired resistance cells across 12 systems. Human workers are sabotaging facilities, and some of our own officers are beginning to question their loyalty." "All because of one ship?" An asked. "It's not just the ship," Kang replied. "It's what the ship represents. The Indomitable was a legend even before it disappeared. Now it's become a symbol of hope for every human who dreams of freedom." An studied the tactical display showing recent attack sites. "Have you identified their base of operations?" "We believe they're working with Commander Eunmi's resistance cell in the Vega system," Kang said. "But every time we move forces to investigate, they've already moved." "What about the quantum signature you mentioned?" "Our scientists think they're using some kind of temporal displacement technology," Kang explained. "The ship exists partially, outside normal spacetime, which makes it nearly impossible to track or target." An made his decision. "Send a message to all hegemony installations in this sector. I want every ship, every station, and every patrol to be ready. When this Phantom appears again, we'll be waiting." Meanwhile, in the hidden asteroid base, Captain Lee Dong-min faced the most difficult decision of his military career. Chief Engineer Kim had just given him the final report on their quantum drive system. "2 more major jumps, Captain," Kim said grimly. "After that, the system will be completely dead. We'll be stuck in normal space like any other ship." Lee looked around the briefing room at his senior officers and the resistance leaders who had joined them. His daughter Eunmi sat across from him, her expression unreadable. "We need to make our final strike count," Commander Park Ji-won said. "Something that will inspire humans across the galaxy to rise up." "I have a proposal," Eunmi said quietly. "There's a prisoner transport leaving Earth tomorrow. It's carrying 500 resistance fighters who were captured in recent raids." "What kind of defenses?" Lieutenant Commander Choi So-young asked. "Minimal," Eunmi replied. 2 escort destroyers and a patrol cruiser. The hegemony doesn't expect anyone to be foolish enough to attack a ship so close to their main fleet." Lee felt his stomach tighten. "That's a civilian transport. There will be innocent people aboard." "The prisoners are our people," Eunmi said firmly. "And the guards are enemy combatants. As for the crew," she shrugged. "They chose their side when they decided to serve the hegemony." "Absolutely not," Lee said. "We don't attack ships with civilian crews." "Then what do you suggest?" Eunmi asked, her voice rising. "Another military depot? Another communication array? Small victories that don't change anything?" "I suggest we think bigger," Dr. Yoon Hae-rin said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. "What if we didn't hide anymore? What if we brought the fight directly to them?" "What do you mean?" Lee asked. "I mean we use our last quantum jump to appear right here, in Earth orbit, in front of their entire fleet. We challenge them to a direct fight." The room erupted in arguments. Some called it suicide, others called it brilliant. Through it all, Lee sat quietly, thinking about what Dr. Yoon had suggested. "It would be 50 ships against 1, Colonel." Bae Junho protested. Yes, Dr. Yoon replied. But think about what that would look like to every human in the galaxy. One ship standing alone against an entire fleet, refusing to back down. Even if we lost, it would prove that humans can still fight back. And if we won? Asked engineer Shin Da-won. If we won, Park said slowly, it would change everything. Lee looked at his daughter. What do you think? Eunmi was quiet for a long moment. I think you're all insane, she said finally. But I also think it's exactly the kind of crazy plan my father would come up with. For the first time since their reunion, she smiled at him. It was a small smile, but it reminded Lee of the little girl he had left behind 50 years ago. There's one problem, Kim said. Even with our advanced weapons and shields, we can't fight 50 ships at once. We'll need help. Leave that to me, Eunmi said. I can get you help. The next day, the TFS Indomitable used its last quantum displacement jump to appear in Earth orbit. Immediately, alarms sounded throughout the hegemony fleet as their sensors detected the legendary ship. All ships, this is Fleet Admiral On, came the broadcast. The terrorist vessel has appeared in our space. All units move to intercept. On the Indomitable's bridge, Lee watched as 60 hegemony ships began moving toward them. Signal the fleet, he ordered. Tell them we're here to fight. Sir, the communications officer said, we're receiving a response. Admiral On wants to speak with you directly. Put him through. The main screen showed a middle-aged Korean man in a hegemony uniform. So you're the famous Captain Lee Dongmin. I'm Admiral On Kyung-hoon. I'm here to end your little rebellion. Admiral, Lee, replied calmly. I'm here to remind the galaxy that humans don't surrender. One ship against 60, On said with a laugh. You're going to die for nothing. Maybe, Lee admitted, but we're going to take as many of you with us as we can. The first wave of hegemony ships opened fire, their weapons lighting up space around the Indomitable. The human ships' advanced shields held against the initial barrage, and their return fire destroyed 2 enemy vessels immediately. But there were too many attackers. More ships joined the battle, their combined firepower slowly wearing down the Indomitable's defenses. Shields down to 40%, Park reported. Hull damage on multiple decks, added Kim. Lee gripped his command chair as the ship shook under enemy fire. This was it, their final battle. Win or lose, they would go down, fighting. Then something appeared on the sensors that made everyone on the bridge gasp. Ships were coming out of hyperspace all around Earth, dozens of them, all flying resistance markings. This is Commander Eunmi, came a familiar voice over the communication system. All resistance ships, engage the enemy fleet. Lee watched, in amazement as ships he had never seen before joined the battle. Some were old human vessels that had been hidden for decades. Others were captured hegemony ships with their markings painted over. All of them were crewed by humans who had decided to stop hiding. Captain, Choi said with wonder in her voice. There must be 100 ships out there. Where did they all come from? Park asked. They were always there, Lee realized. They were just waiting for someone to show them it was possible to fight back. The battle turned into chaos as resistance ships engaged hegemony forces throughout the system. Some of the rebel vessels were destroyed quickly. They were old and poorly armed, but their sacrifice allowed others to get close enough to do real damage. Admiral On's fleet found itself surrounded and outnumbered. Worse, several hegemony ships crewed by humans suddenly turned their weapons on their former allies. This is mutiny, On screamed over the communications channel. This is freedom, Lee replied. The tide of battle shifted as more human ships appeared throughout the solar system. Word of the uprising was already spreading to other worlds through quantum communications. Across the galaxy, humans were rising. Up against their hegemony overlords, Admiral On's flagship took heavy damage from 3 resistance cruisers working together. As his ship began to break apart, he sent one final transmission. You think you've won, he told Lee. But the hegemony has thousands of ships. This victory means nothing. It means everything, Lee replied. It means humans remember how to fight. As the last hegemony ships fled or surrendered, Lee found himself looking at a very different Earth than the one he had left. The orbital, Stations were damaged or destroyed, but they were no longer flying alien flags. "Captain," the communications officer said, "we're receiving transmissions from resistance cells on dozens of worlds. They're reporting successful uprisings across the galaxy." Lee felt tears running down his face. They had done it, not just won a battle, but started a revolution that would free humanity from 50 years of subjugation. "Sir," Park said softly, "your daughter is requesting permission to come aboard." "Granted," Lee replied. When Unmi arrived on the bridge, she was no longer the cold resistance leader he had met in the asteroid base. She was his daughter, looking at him with pride and love. "I'm sorry I doubted you," she said quietly. "I'm sorry I left you," Lee replied. "You didn't leave me," Unmi said, hugging him tightly. "You went ahead to prepare the way, just like always." 6 months later, the TFS Indomitable led a fleet of liberated human ships toward the hegemony homeworld. Captain Lee Dong-min stood on his bridge, watching the stars that no longer seemed so distant or cold. The quantum drive was dead, but they didn't need it anymore. Humanity had remembered how to build ships, how to fight, and most importantly, how to hope. Captain, Commander,